Okay.
Hey everybody, it's Richard Harris, Scott Lee's kicking off season 2 of the Surf and Sales podcast. That's right, 200 episodes in 2020. Kind of made sense since twos and zeros were going well. It's probably the only good thing that happened to Scott and I in 2020. But we are joined today with an amazing guest, Sam McKenna, who is a early stage advisor, LinkedIn expert, outsourced BDR, SDR hotline, sales messaging expert, SKO keynote speaker, author, and award-winning leader, and often overly enthusiastic. So Sam, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, you guys. Very excited to be season 2 first guest. I feel like that's a high honor. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Glad you could be here. Richard, that was well done with the intro for all the different monikers.
Well, and I did it all off the top of my head, right?
Memorized on your arm.
Quick shout out to our sponsors, and our newest sponsor this year in 2020 is Salesforce. So thank you to Salesforce.
2021, Richard. It's 2021.
Oh, thank you. There it is. That's it. Scott, it's going to be no longer Richard, you're on mute, to Richard, it's 2021. So thanks to Salesforce, Vidyard, Lead 411, and Gong.io. They all this to help support your sales organization and beyond, particularly with Salesforce and Revenue Cloud. So thank you to all of them for joining us. So Sam, enough about us. Let's talk about you. So where did you even decide you liked being in sales?
Oh God, right. I think, I'm the same person like everybody else. I fell into this. I was offered my first sales job and I turned it down. And then I negotiated for $5,000 more in annual salary. Still very proud of that. And when I got that job, I thought, how am I going to be successful in this? But I think one of the things that makes me love this job and makes me realize that I love sales is that I really look at it as we're helping people, right? Everybody's got a challenge. They've got something they're looking to solve. They've got, technology they hate, or a service they hate, or a challenge they come across every day. And we get to solve that for them. And I love the helpfulness of that. I would walk through fire to help almost anybody. So the fact that I get to do that for a living is pretty awesome.
Yep. So a couple of things I want to go into is the first thing that sort of popped into my mind is that, and I actually want to know, I'll come back to it. I want to know, so you fell into it. What even made you want to take the first interview, regardless of turning it down? What made you even go, all right, let me give this a shot?
Yeah, so there's a venture capitalist here in DC called Paul Villela. DC is where I live, and Paul was a guy I really respected. I still do, I should say. He's coming to my wedding. But Paul was amazing, and he was like, "You should take a job in sales." And I'm like, "No, absolutely not." And he's like, "Take this interview. I think you'll really like it." And it was actually being an account manager. And he's like, "You just get to help people and grow the business and just basically order take." That's what he sold me on anyway for account management. And so I took the interview. Then I got the cold feet. And I thought, I'm going to have to make cold calls. I'm going to have to pitch. This sounds miserable. I'm going to have to convince people to buy stuff from me. No thanks. And then after the whopping new negotiation, I ended up taking that first job as an account manager a million years ago.
So this is a really important thing. You said no and negotiated an extra $5,000. And there's so much content in the marketplace that unfortunately women don't do that. And it ends up costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars in their career, right? Because they're starting, $5,000 means the next place is 10 more and the next one is 20. And so you're not behind. Were you coached to do that? Or were you just like, no, that's just sort of how it fell for me?
I think probably like you both, I feel like I was born a hustler. So I wasn't coached to do it. I just knew that I could probably ask for more and get a little bit more. And I think that's kind of how I've gone throughout my entire career and kind of everything. But Richard, you're totally right. Like, women don't negotiate for this stuff. They leave money on the table all the time. They'll take the first offer, right? And there's so much that we can do to negotiate, to ask for more money. I will tell you something too. Early in my sales career, one of the companies I worked for said, "Let's see how you do over the next 6 months. And if you succeed, we'll give you a $5,000 raise. We'll talk about another $5,000 raise." And at some point I had talked to a male counterpart on my team who told me that he had received a $60,000 raise. And just
Wow.
having that info, and same title, same responsibilities, same everything. And knowing that information, being empowered to know what a colleague was making, which this was back in the day before we were really thinking about pay equality, empowered me to say that I wanted that. And I actually ended up getting 65 instead of 5. So yeah.
Were you like, how pissed were you?
I was pissed.
Right.
Plus I was the top performer the year before, second time in a row. So I was super ticked that I was having to earn an extra $5,000. Give me a break.
So hold on a second, Scott. So did you go call this out to your manager and say, I know this? How did you, I guess, here's the question, because I think this is what people would like to know, I think particularly women, but anybody, how did you handle that when you knew the disparity was that different? And how did you do that so as not to create a negative situation for yourself?
Yeah. So I think one of the most powerful positions we're in when we are strong, consistent top performers, right? And top performers, I really emphasize the consistency, because we have lots of people who perform well for 6 months and then they're like, I want everything. And you're like, hang on, slow your roll. So after you become a consistent top performer, that company, especially if you're a good cultural fit, right? If you're a team player, if you help other people, if you're not a jerk to others, if you are that person, they will move mountains to keep you, right? So it's just a matter of opening up that conversation, seeing that you've, again, consistently been that top performer and you've earned the right to have that conversation. Where I found out this information in March of that year. And then when June came around, I had almost crushed my number for the entire year. By then, I think I was at like 89% of year-to-date goal. And I said, I am in a pressure cooker. You guys expect more from me every single month. You guys expect me to pull in deals when we're going to miss forecast. I always do that. I need a significant raise if it's going to mean that I'm going to continue to stay here. And it was basically just opening that conversation to say, you ask a lot from me. I would like to ask a lot from you back.
I'm going to interrupt Scott one more time. How would you say that? How would you say that? Or did you say it that way of like, if you want me to stay here? Because that can be perceived as a threat. And to your point, if you're producing at that level, they shouldn't perceive it as a threat. And if they did, then, shame on them.
Yeah.
But is there more, that's a Richard way to say it. I'm curious, how would you say that more softly, but more just differently? Or is that how you said it?
No, it is how I said it. I think you've got to play that game correctly, right? So there's a lot of people who come in swinging with bats and they're like, well, I'm going to leave, or I've already got another offer. And that's what they're coming to the table with, which really can take people off. And they can be like, fine, go and chase that other offer. If you've already gone to the trouble of taking company time out to interview, to be, to go through all of the rigmaroles of an interview and then get the offer, then you're clearly 1 foot out the door. And I will tell you, for those people those reps, if you're a leader, those reps that come to you and say, I've already got an offer, I'm going to leave, and you offer them more money to stay, on average, and Amy Volis, one of our favorites, will probably check me on this stat, but on average, people leave within those next 6 months. So you're only holding on to them for a little bit longer before they take another foot out the door and then just leave you. But if that person comes to you, right, or if you come to the table and say like, I don't want to look elsewhere, I love being here, but this is a pressure cooker. You guys expect so much of me. I don't think that the pay that I get is commensurate with what I should be earning given my performance. I'd like to talk about a raise or what we can do before considering going elsewhere, right? It's a different conversation than coming and say like, hey, I already have an engagement ring from another guy. I'm going to leave you unless you buy me a bigger one, right?
Oh my God. Ouch. That one stung right there.
That would hurt, right?
Oh God. Brutal. Would this approach be the same whether you were an individual contributor versus like a manager or a VP? I'm trying to imagine myself as a SVP saying to my boss, hey, this is a pressure cooker. And I'm wondering if there's a different type of conversation depending on the level in the org that you're at.
I think you are probably right about that, right? And I have not been in an SVP role, but where I would have to have a conversation like that. I would think though, as an IC, right? No matter how tenured you are, if we're talking to 25-year-old IC or we're talking to a 50-year-old IC, you're in a different position, right? You're in a different tier bracket in terms of pay. Like you're going to cap out at some point what your base salary is, and then where the amount of money that you're really going to bring in is what your comp plan, your OTE looks like. But as an SVP, if an SVP said to a CEO or CRO, hey, I'm in a pressure cooker, I think that CEO would say, that's why you have that title, right? That's kind of what we expect of you at that level. So I think your pay should be commensurate, right? But I think the conversation is different. And I think the conversation then becomes really tied to company metrics, performance, and revenue versus just like the pressure and the demands that we put on you on the job, because that SVP is probably pretty damn heavily compensated. And if they're not, then they should look elsewhere. What do you think, Scott?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, the first response I'd get would be, well, that's why you're here. That's why we're paying you what we're paying you. But I've had those kind of conversations many times before, and it went okay on occasion, and it didn't go well on occasion. And the times it didn't go well, it kind of solidified in my mind that it was probably time to move on. And the times that it did go well, to Amy's point, it was kind of too late by then. There's something to be said for an employer, like recognizing the value of somebody in advance before I have to go even have that dialogue. At least for me. Maybe I'm petty. I don't know.
No, well, because I think at that point you kind of feel like it's too late. You're like, why am I bringing this forward to you? Yeah. I will say, just to check a little bit of who I am and the kind of hustler in me. When I was having this conversation, it was on the heels of me, as I said, being rep of the year, and I had just been given my raise from the previous year, which was $30,000 total OTE raise. Now, most people would say, that's amazing. Are you complaining about that? Are you complaining that you got that amount of money as a raise? And I did complain, because it was the second year in a row that I had done it while doing monstrous amounts of things for this organization. And it was identical to the raise that I got last year. So I felt but more was deserved. So when that $5,000 was given for, let's talk in June about the extra 5,000, and I actually negotiated the 65, I was really proud of myself, because it was almost $100,000 raise in 6 months or so. But fight for, it was mind-blowing money. Fight for what you're worth, though. The level of effort and everything that you bring to a company. If you know you are a star, then fight for it.
If you're gonna ask for a raise, don't ask for a couple of coins you find in the bottom of the couch. You might as well take a big hack at it.
Is that what's in your couch, Scott? $5,000? Should I come over?
No, I don't have that many coins in my couch at the moment. Sam is being a little bit humble, Richard. She's been an RVP at On24. She was the head of sales in New York at LinkedIn. Tell everybody here, we went right into it, but tell everybody here, like, what you do with Sam Sales, and give people context of like where your sales acumen and sales leadership and your background comes from.
Yeah, so this is just going to make me sound like a conceited jerk, but over the course...
That's my entire point of asking the question, is to try to make you look as bad as possible.
Thanks, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. I spent 13 years in sales, being an IC and then being an IC and then an executive leader. And over that time, right, the hustler in me, like, I really figured out how to hit my quota, how to build relationships, how to be a challenger seller, relationship seller second. I learned how to do all that stuff. But I think a lot of it, honestly, just came from the hustle and the grind of what my parents taught me. They were both entrepreneurs. So I took a lot of that and applied it to my sales game. And so as an IC, I broke a ton of records. I think a dozen company records across a few different companies as a salesperson. And then eventually said, I know I want to be a leader. So how can I do that, right? Once you're a really successful IC, nobody wants to promote you because they don't want to lose that revenue, right? As a top performing sales rep. So you kind of figure out how you can go above and beyond. And what kind of led to all of this, right, in running Sam Sales and creating Sam Sales is just a consistent history of sales success and clients seeing what I've done, what I've been able to do for them, how I've been able to advise them over the years, and building a brand on LinkedIn, right? Like you both know exactly how to do that. The content that you post, showing your subject matter expertise, showing your sales acumen out there, builds a brand for you and people know that they can trust you. So when I left LinkedIn in August of 2019, I was going to just take some time off, and I had a bunch of clients that reached out and said, we have absolutely no idea what we're doing. You do. Come help us figure it out. And it grew from there into so much more than I ever imagined.
So would it be fair to say that your consulting business just kind of fell in your lap a little bit by these people reaching out to you. That's what happened to me years ago. I started getting messages that were like, hey, would you ever help us? Richard was maybe more like a strategic decision to go that route, I think.
No.
Yeah.
No, Richard?
No, like I started, the story is I started my consulting business because I got laid off, right? Like, and I couldn't, my challenge was I couldn't interview well. I was always interviewing for the sales development leadership role. And I would always be asked, well, what role what do you want in 5 years? I get that stupid question. And I'd say, I want your job as VP of sales. And this was 2012. And what I should have said, and I've since learned, is I want to make this go global. I want to be head of global SDRs. And this is a challenge. Scott and I talk about this all the time, is that for some reason in my head, I don't think far enough ahead. Like I'm so transactional in my career mindset in some ways that I'm thinking 3 steps ahead, and Scott's playing much better chess at 10 steps ahead. So it did come from that. It did come from a couple of people reaching out to me, sitting next to Nick Mata on an airplane, ironically, and getting a second client. So it was a little different, but then it became a conscious decision because of the money.
Yeah.
Like I was making in 60 days what I could make in 6 months. And that's how it happened for me. But why were you just burnt? I mean, it's LinkedIn, right? Like, everybody, it's the brand, right? Like that'll get you in any door.
Kidding,
I
right?
know.
Yeah.
Right?
And what an incredible company to work for. I always, right? I advise people who are going to go to LinkedIn for their first job. And I'm like, be careful. It is like, you're getting to Mecca. Like, this is it. It's never going to be any better. Like, they will take such good care of you and pay you well and give you all the snacks, and all of the things that you can imagine, right? It's tough to leave LinkedIn and go elsewhere. I think the interesting part about the departure of LinkedIn was the way I got to LinkedIn was being an advocate for the platform. So I had deployed the technology of Navigator, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. For any of you guys who don't use it, oh my gosh, jump on it. But I had gone and I had advocated for it via customer testimonial. And I was so excited about it that they're like, you should come work here. And I was like, I'll never say never. And then there you go. But even upon leaving LinkedIn, one of the most beautiful parts about this is I get to serve as one of their ambassadors. I get to be a brand ambassador for them, get to be involved in their marketing campaigns, right? And still advocate for the platform in every way humanly possible while running my own business. And I'll tell you too, like, you're absolutely right. Like, getting to LinkedIn is huge, but even just having the experience under your belt is a massive game changer, right? It adds such credibility to you because people are like, wow, like if you ran this at LinkedIn, right? Or if LinkedIn wanted to hire you, if you still serve, in capacities to support everything that they're doing, like that must really say something about your sales acumen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, go ahead, Richard.
I was gonna follow that up with, when my first real sales job, high school, was, and even out of college into management, was the Gap, right? And people said, why would you do that? Why would you and I said, because that logo will get me anywhere in my next 2 career stories, right? And to the same thing with LinkedIn for people who are thinking of the startup community or SaaS or tech. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking that role and learning a ton with those companies at a company like LinkedIn, because that will, and you may stay there many, many years, which is great. Same with Salesforce, right? But you might as well, if you get that opportunity, I say take it, because that's going to set you up for the next couple of careers.
It's interesting you say that. So back onto the engagement ring analogy from earlier. So basically, when I went to LinkedIn, it was a decision between going to LinkedIn in this role or going to run a startup, which is a competitor to one of your sponsors, and that's about as much as I'll say. And it was literally like the final rose at the Bachelorette here, and waiting to decide, was I going to choose LinkedIn or was I going to choose this other company? And what's interesting is that in the end, what really drove the decision to go to LinkedIn was that the CEO of the other company didn't come to the table with his offer, right? He just now I've identified the gender of the CEO.
Meaning they like took too long to come to the table, or nothing just ever materialized, or what?
Yeah, so they said, we want you, come on board. LinkedIn said the same thing. Here's our offer. And so when I called, I was actually in Tahoe. I called the CEO of the company and I said, I'm going to respectfully turn down the offer. I'm going to go to LinkedIn. The CEO said, I refuse to take no for an answer. Come, let's meet for breakfast. Let's negotiate. And so when I came, he's like, I think you should just write up your own offer. And I'm like, don't you want to make me an offer? Like, I don't know what to ask you for. You're a startup. I don't know what kind of capital you're even dealing with here. And so we kind of went back and forth. And at the end, I said, okay, well, so here's what I want. And he's like, well, we don't do that. We don't do a signing bonus. We don't do this. And I'm like, bro, just write me an offer.
Yeah,
So,
that part is super frustrating to hear. If I'm gonna say to Sam, listen, here's a napkin, write your demands on the napkin, and then I get the napkin back and I'm like, oh no, not that one and not this one. What kind of game is that?
well, and I think what's interesting,
not big enough. I need a bigger napkin.
the CEO went to a mutual friend of ours and said, what did I do wrong? How did I blow it? And the mutual friend said, she already had the engagement ring from someone else and you came to propose with nothing. And he's like, that's your mistake. You can never do that again. But looking back in hindsight, like I'm eternally thankful that I had chosen LinkedIn, right? Like it worked out perfectly in the end, because that logo is a game changer, right? The Salesforces and everything, those are game changers. I will say on the hiring front, for anyone hiring and looking at those logos, be careful too, right? You want to make sure that that person didn't work at Salesforce for like 3 months by virtue of acquisition, right? We want to make sure they were actually there on merit. Like they continue to rise through the ranks. They continue to run the grind of being at a Salesforce or an Oracle or whatever. So don't get too blind on the logo piece. Dig in.
Important to remember that good logo sales orgs still have rep churn, and they still make mistakes in hiring sometimes, and you don't want to accidentally hire one of those people. Totally. Sam, I want to ask you about your famous saying, at least it's famous to me and Amy, which is "Show me, you know me."
Which way do I go? Here we go.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
You were sitting in front of it before. I literally didn't even notice that it was on the wall back there. I love this so much. Explain to Richard and everybody else where that came from and what it means and how you use it, every day with your clients and things like that.
So I think we talk about the idea of personalization at scale, which is one of the terms that I personally hate. I think personalization at scale says to me, I'm going to input some brackets in Outreach or SalesLoft. I'm going to list your university or where you live or
people in the back. Say it louder for people in the back.
Yeah,
I hate.
You
have to redefine the word scale.
Right.
So, awesome.
It's awful, right? And imagine like you guys get an email and it says like, Richard, I love your surf and sales podcast. Do you want to buy my CRM platform? And you're like, no. You're like, what about my podcast? What about, what is it about the fact that I went to school here or whatever? And people think that this is the right thing to do now. So my show me, you know me is show me, you know me. Don't show me that, I went to Florida State or that I do podcasts or that I was on Nickelodeon when I was a kid on a game show. What of it, right? Like, what do you think about it? What's your personal tie to it? Like, is there a restaurant you love in DC, like where I live? What is it? Like, talk to me about that. And I think an interesting thing about that, and this applies to a bunch of things, but let's just even start at surface level with like outbound emails, right? We get people who say, don't connect on a personal level. Nobody cares that you know where they went to school and then you have something to say about it. People care that you can solve their challenges. Sure, they do, absolutely. But for all of the emails that we get every single day that pitch and pitch and pitch and are just garbagey emails, if we just have one person who is like, hey, Scott, I took 6 minutes to look at your profile, dig into something you're passionate about, look at a charity you love, make a donation to a charity you love, whatever it is, I know something about you and I can identify with that. We can build some rapport. Scott's going to say, thanks for giving a damn. Thanks for taking 6 minutes out of your day to actually research me. I have no interest in buying whatever the hell it is, but I can help you and make an introduction to you, right?
Yeah. Now, why is it so hard for people to grasp this and just intuitively take advantage of it? For example,
yeah.
If this was like a live broadcast right now and everyone could see me and hear me, they would know I'm having like the worst allergy attack of all time. I tell you, like the easiest way to get an appointment with me today, if somebody fucking delivered Claritin to my front door today with a little note that says, hey, feel better, dude, that's like a guaranteed appointment. Like
right?
that type of thing is so intuitive to me. I don't know if it's that way because I've been doing this for way too long, or I just have it in me. How do you teach somebody that kind of intuition or that kind of give a shit? Or can you?
Well, I think you can. So I think one, it starts at leadership levels, right? So if you are a rep and your leader says you are going to live and breathe and die by making 100 calls a day, like you're never going to personalize. Because you're never going to be able to do that. You're never going to be able to personalize 100 different emails in a day and then do everything else you have to, right? So it starts at the leadership level to say, we really value quality over quantity, right? So forget 100. If you can send out 20 quality emails today and get 3 people to respond, which is hard enough in itself, you can get 1 person to respond today. Like that's fantastic. So it starts there. But then 2, I think people are just risk averse to this stuff, right? They're so sold on like always be closing, quantity, make 500 calls, all that stuff. They're so focused on the old way to do sales that they haven't really thought about how to do quantity or quality, quantity with quality mixed in there. I think the other thing is people don't really understand how to do those connective tissues, right? Like I teach this all day long to people. And I'm like, here's how you can connect the dots on something, right? We talk about something as simple as like, let's find somebody who lives in Vegas, right? So, okay, what do we know about Vegas? Have you ever been there? We know there's a ton of casinos. We know if you've been to Vegas, you've been to a place called Lotus of Siam. Has anybody been there? You guys been there before? Oh my God, incredible.
I will not, I cannot confirm nor deny this.
It's food, don't worry. But if you imagine,
okay.
Right, don't worry. It's this like institution at a strip mall. And if you live in Vegas or if you've been to Vegas a bunch of times, you probably know about it. So imagine you find somebody who lives in Vegas and you put in the subject line, Lotus of Siam plus, I don't know, Sam Sales Consulting. You're going to get that person to be like, and open the email and be like, oh my God, I love that place. It's fantastic. I'm so glad you've had it too. But just teaching somebody how to connect the dots to say, let's find something that you can connect on. And then let's go 1 level deeper on that thing, right? So for the people like on the Nickelodeon show, people are like, I love Nickelodeon. And you're like, cool. Why? Like, do you have a specific memory, like something, right? Or like, so I love your.
That was my next question, because maybe someone will listen to this and say, what game show were you on Nickelodeon? Did you win anything? What were you doing? Was it the thing where
more importantly, where is the footage? Because
well, yeah,
you be a sharing of it.
You and my fiance are on have the same question there, which he has watched, I think, like 29 episodes so far to try and find me, and so far no luck. I was on Legends of the Hidden Temple, not the slime one, sadly. My dog's gonna make an appearance here in a second.
The slime one is the only one.
Which one?
Wasn't Alanis Morissette on Nickelodeon at one point?
I think was she on Mickey Mouse Club? Kids Incorporated? Those were my dreams, man.
I'll have to go look it up anyway. So what did you have to do on this game show just for the fun of it and give people something?
Well, I didn't get past the first round, and because we haven't found the footage, I'm just going to say it's because my teammate was terrible, not me. So we'll go with that. But I did win a lifetime supply of Hershey's chocolate syrup, which
no way.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which incidentally just comes in a crate and is like 12 bottles, which I mean, like we're going to burn through that in like a weekend. So not so much a lifetime supply.
Well, that's not really a lifetime supply. A lifetime supply would be just that.
I know, it's crap.
Refilled, like,
Well, to add insult to injury, my whole family is European. I was born in Switzerland, and my grandfather worked for Nestle his entire life. So when like Hershey's, which is like obviously a Nestle, just competitor and garbage. Yeah, non-starter. They were like, "This is terrible," and they were very upset. I'm like, "Mom, cool it. I'm like 8. Like, don't give me a hard time." But again, yeah, this is just hard. People just don't know how to make. It's like having a conversation. Just figure out something to connect with the person on.
Oh my God, how do I teach people to have a conversation and be, charismatic? This is the conundrum.
I'm going to go against the grain a little bit. I'm not opposed to hyper-personalization. It works.
Yeah.
Right? Totally get it. What do you think about the LinkedIn bots? What do you think of the linked helpers and the duck soup and those things?
I think it's all garbage, you guys. I don't know who I'm offending.
But what if it works? What if it works?
Quality though? So let's think about this. Let's think about the opportunity cost, if we can really say that, right? So let's say we send out through one of these LinkedIn helpers, we send out 1,000 emails, right? And we get one at some point VP of sales who hasn't really been sold to on LinkedIn and doesn't know the game of how this is all run that responds and we get a deal out of it. What about the 999 people that probably read that and thought, well, and then deleted it, right? So
message.
What's that?
That's a shitty message, whether it's an email or LinkedIn, right? So
doesn't matter.
So I disagree. Like I've crafted and taught people how to do this, not necessarily with the bot, but I could easily take what I do and put it in a bot and you wouldn't know the difference.
You wouldn't know you wouldn't know the difference unless you've got the surfing
same thing, right? Like you got the icon.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I don't know. I think for me, you know, I especially for me personally, like I want to make sure that I have a good solid brand. I want to make sure that I stand out above the pack, right? And I want to do that personalization. That is important to me over the scale, because I would rather have the quality conversion versus just spraying and praying and hoping for the best.
This is my concern with, this is like a little sci-fi, but like this is my concern with the direction of all these personalization tools in email, like writers for you and everything. Is like at some point in time when I get 100 messages and every one of them is so hyper personalized, they know all these intimate details about me, and I'm like, how does everybody know that? I'm gonna know it's not actually Sam and not actually Richard. I'm gonna know that Sam and Richard are just using a piece of technology to exploit me.
Right.
I don't know how I feel about that. I don't think I'm ready for that.
I think, Scott, if someone does it well, you wouldn't know.
I think it depends on
if everybody's doing the same thing, I will know. I'll know everybody's using technology, Richard, and that will bother me.
To me, the when you uncover that it's something that was done automated, I think it just changes in my mind anyway, it changes the game for the person in my mind for who that person is, right? I know, and it's tough. Like, what are you going to do in terms of being able to do all this quality, right, and catch the scale that we're looking for? But I think to that point, if you put in the time and the effort, and you put in the time and the effort to an SVP, to a CRO, to a Scott, to a Richard, to a Sam, right? We're going to say, thanks for even doing that. Thanks for doing that human element. How can I help you? There's a guy that continues to email me and stay in touch, and I will never buy his product, but I think of him in the back of my mind for how I can help him, because he was hyper personalized in the message he sent out. But it wasn't just like, I saw you went to FS2 and that you were on Nickelodeon and that you grew up in Orlando. It wasn't that. It was, here's what I think about it, or here's an anecdote about that, right? They're making that personal and that human connection. And I'd advocate for anyone else that's out there in a senior role, if you get someone who actually gives a damn, right, and does that research and tries to connect with you on a human element, give them like 2 or 3 minutes back and say, this isn't my purview, but here's my peer, and maybe they'll hear you out, right? At least give them a name, give them something to hook them up.
I want to ask one more question about this personalization kind of thing, and it ties to messaging people over the holidays.
Yeah.
Which can bring up a whole other issue, because I messaged you over the holidays, right? Yeah. And I got this out of office message, which I never use out of office messages. That's like a whole nother issue and topic that we could maybe go into. But here's my thing. It's like supposed to be super taboo to message people over the holidays, right? Like leave people alone on Christmas Eve, Christmas and New Year's and all this kind of stuff. And you know, you can schedule send everything. Here's the problem that I have with this. I woke up to, I'm not kidding, I had like 600 fucking emails this morning.
Yeah.
Because everybody scheduled send for Monday morning, January 4th. And if you know me at all, I would have much rather you message me on Christmas fucking day than today. Right? So
it's officially Christmas fucking day now, not Christmas Day. I love it.
That's right. This is my level of frustration. And it led me to say, look, I'm not working. It led me to like delay starting my workday for a couple hours this morning, because I'm just like, I don't have the energy for this. I can't even deal. So I did something else. How do you coach and give guidance to people over how to navigate this period of time that we just came out of, this like 2-week bizarre period? Should you message people when the thought comes into your head? Should you leave people alone? I messaged you because the thought came into my head. Luckily for me, you didn't bite my head off and you said, oh, sure. Right. But it could have backfired on me, I suppose. What do you think about this?
I can't imagine responding and being like, how dare you email me on the 4th? Like, geez, but if that's your initial response, like, oh my gosh, like let loose a little bit. I don't have a strong opinion about leaving people alone over the holidays because we don't know what their schedules are. We have absolutely no idea if they're in the office. If you're in sales, you're in the office probably until like 11:59 on New Year's Eve, chasing that last contract, right? Like part of what I love about running my own company is not having to do that ever, hopefully,
Yeah,
ever
amen.
again.
Amen to that.
Um,
Yeah.
I think you don't know what's going on in people's lives. You don't know if they're with their family and they're bored out of their noodle. You don't know if they're like, oh yeah, I got to work so they can escape from their family. You have no idea, And I think that there's no right or wrong about it. It's also like the weekend emailing. I email executives on the weekend, right? Or I'll teach reps to do that
Yeah.
because pre-COVID, we're at our kids' soccer games and we're bored. I don't have any kids, but I imagine that's where I would be if I did. We're bored out of our noodles, right? We're looking for a way to occupy our time and we have less competition. Now, I will say just exactly to your point, right? Or in thinking about even posting on LinkedIn, you'll see I didn't post on LinkedIn today. You guys probably did. A bunch of people who did. I didn't because you know what? Everybody posted on LinkedIn today, which means I'm not going to get as much engagement because I'm competing with everybody else's posts to actually get my post seen today. So I'm not posting, but I will post tomorrow because everybody's like, woo, it's the 4th. It's the first day of the year. I'm going to post. And then tomorrow they're like already off of their New Year's posting resolution. So I'll wait till then. But what if I had emailed you last night instead, right, Scott? I would have been 1 out of 6 emails that you got instead of 1 of 600.
That's
and you
right.
probably
Yeah.
would have spent time personalizing it and you would have never read it. So think about
no,
that timing.
actually, I probably would have saw it last night and responded last night, and I would not have got lost in the maze of today.
Yeah, totally. I will say too, like think about you guys, but I know tons of executives who prep for their week ahead on Sunday nights, right? They carve time out after the kids are in. Right? Yeah, exactly. So if you pop in an email while you've got them working on something else, they might just read it and respond right then and there and say, I'm CCing whatever.
Let me ask you this question. I'm going to come back. So this goes back to my initial point was, one, I think you could message someone on Christmas Day every day. Like, when's the best day to contact someone? Today, like always. But it's the message, right? Like if I were going to message somebody on Christmas Day, it'd be like, hey, if you're actually reading this today, it probably means you had enough of your family too. Right? Like,
yeah,
right?
see, yeah.
And to your point, I'd set it up with a bot and you'd never know the difference. Right?
Richard.
So anyway, so it's about the messaging, but I think that's really important. I agree with you on the Sunday night, Saturday. There's tons of studies that show that's pretty good. Although to Scott's point earlier, it's not as a well-known secret. It's not a well-kept secret anymore. So, it doesn't work as well as it used to. Creativity absolutely matters. But I will tell you, if you haven't seen, this is just a shameless plug, well, particularly since you haven't coming on the show, but Corporate Bro did a video of 12:01 a.m. New Year's Eve, pretending to be calling people. Hey, you said to wait till the New Year.
I saw, yeah.
Classic video.
He's like hammered.
Yeah. So,
he's my favorite. He and I are going to get married one day. He just doesn't know it yet, so pretty excited about it.
We're having him live. We're having him live tomorrow on the bonfire session. So if you want to come on and propose to him, he'd probably be hilarious.
But that would be a first for you guys.
My fiance won't care. Only if he has a bigger ring. We've already heard that.
Damn right, Scott.
So.
Oh my God, you guys. Yeah. So I think the thing you're saying about, not well-known secret, or a well-known secret now, not well-kept secret about when to email. I think people still don't know how to do that. I think look at Scott's inbox today, 600 emails set for the first thing this morning.
I actually, you said something, I'm going to misquote you a little bit, so I apologize, but you basically said like people are afraid to shoot their shot.
Yeah.
That's what I heard. Like people are gun shy to send something. And I think one of the smartest things you can do if you're in sales in any capacity is to kill that part of your personality that's afraid to shoot that shot.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Totally. They can yell at you for emailing on Christmas Day, right? And then
Yeah.
that's the one person that emailed you and everybody else hopefully responded or read it.
Yeah.
I think, like every single sales training I do starts with the idea of being different, right? It's not even a matter of being better at sales. It's a matter of being different at the way that you play the game. And I think this is one of the ways that you can be different, right? To think about when you can email on the weekend, to think about how you personalize, to think about emailing over the holidays, right? We're not talking about spamming here, but just think about how to stand out from the crappy sales noise that we get every single day, right? Master that. Think of ways to do the things that nobody else thinks to do.
By the way, I just did my research, and then I know we got to wrap it up. And thanks to our sponsors of Salesforce Revenue Cloud, Vidyard, Lead 411, and Gong.io. But Alanis Morissette was on Nickelodeon You Can't Do That on Television. And what makes me really excited to say this is that I knew it more than Scott, and Scott's a much better music aficionado than I am.
Oh.
That's true.
Yeah,
but
in a legitimate way, like in a sincere way, you know way more about music than I do.
I think that was the slime one. I think that's where you got slimed, right? There was like the up the nose, and that was like Double Dare, Family Double Dare. But the slime, I think, was You Can't.
That's a good one.
Should we offer a $100 reward to anybody who can find the Sam McKenna Nickelodeon episode?
Oh, I'm in. I will Venmo somebody $100 if they find.
Me too. Me too. There you go.
Oh my God, you guys! Yeah. There goes my sales career.
$200 bounty. $200 bounty.
Or imagine if they just use that. Yeah, go ahead.
How can we be helpful to you? That's how we like to end every show. Any questions for us, or something that you're passionate about on the side that you want to bring some attention to?
I'll tell you a couple things. So one, for not only for my content, but for Richard and for Scott's, one of the biggest things you can do to help all three of us is to engage with our content. So I posted about this a while ago. Tons of people reach out to me and they're like, I'm always reading your content. It's so helpful. And I'm like, awesome. Engage with it. Every single time you engage with our content, it furthers the reach of what we're talking about. And at the end of the day, while we're doing this to build our businesses, we're also doing it to just change the game of sales and to help people learn to be better. So biggest thing you can do is help and engage with our content there. For any of you guys that are super charitable, on samsalesconsulting.com, we've got a philanthropy page. We have 4 charities that we support nationwide and local to DC. So if you're feeling charitable and you've got $5 and you got something of value out of today, feel free to hop over there and support one of my favorite charities. That'd be great.
That's awesome. What are the charities, Sam? Go ahead and drop the charities if you remember them off the top of your head.
Yeah, yeah. So we support a local food bank to DC, which is, as you guys know, this year has been super, super hard hit, food banks in general. We support junior achievement. My heart beats for financial literacy, which I could talk to you about for 600 hours. We support the Fisher House Foundation. We employ a ton of military and expat spouses here, so military support's near and dear to my heart. And we also support an organization called Homestretch, which basically houses 50 people here in DC who are homeless, teaches them life skills and supports them financially for 2 years and then sets them free. It's a ridiculously awesome charity. So if you want to solve any of those challenges, we'll welcome your funding.
That's incredible. Thank you, Sam, for coming on the show. And Richard, she just raised the bar and being a good human. We're slacking in the charity game.
I should have a charity page on my website. That's not hard to do, right? That's super simple.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sam, for spending some time with us.
I'm also glad it's the first episode where Scott hasn't had to say, Richard, you're on mute. So we're kicking off.
It's a new year. It's a new year, Richard. You have evolved. Achievement unlocked.
Thanks, Sam. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys.